Hey, hey, this is Moments with Nderru podcast. Welcome to another episode, and thank you for tuning in wherever you are in the world. So, this is a space where you'll be inspired, encouraged, and uplifted. Remember, every new episode will be coming every 2 weeks. So, let's dive into today's conversation. Today's guest identifies herself as a Nigerian American who was raised in Southern California after her parents migrated from Nigeria to the States in the early 80s. Peace, along with her cousin, is the founder of a nonprofit organization called Pure Unity Inc. Its mission is to educate, inspire, and continue to expose the African diaspora on the importance of mental health and self-actualization. Welcome onto the show, Peace.
Thank you. Thank you.
What 3 words would your friends describe you with?
What 3 words? I would say warrior. They would say energetic, and um, another word would be, uh, I guess maybe team player.
Nice. So when you say energetic, as a young child, were you up and about and your parents had to hold you down? Give us earliest memory of your childhood.
Yeah, I would say my childhood. I mean, I had different situations that went on during my childhood. At least a period of separation from like my siblings. Um, so maybe during that time, just kind of developed sort of like a really independent mindset, and always kind of really had an explorative mindset as well. And so uh, also, I would say in terms of like that energetic aspect, my mom, she always say the words "injinja." So injinja means you're always going, like, you're going, keep going, keep moving. And kind of like that's kind of characterized my childhood as always exploring, not necessarily with anybody in mind, like just my own mindset of exploring different things that, especially when it comes to like social um, behavior and people. So I'm kind of always been in that mindset of being explorative in that area.
I like that. Someone who keeps on going, you're always going. So how did you explore your way through life to eventually co-found this organization, Pure Unity?
Yes. So Pure Unity was birthed through, I mentioned earlier in terms of my childhood and kind of being separated from my siblings and parents for a period of about 2.5 years or so. And so during that period, I was living with a family in which, familiar family within our network of Nigerian community. And so I was living with my partner. She's Onyinye or Ruby Okeke now. And so our stories are so similar, in which we now, after like graduate school, we and I wasn't living with her at the time, but after undergrad, I would say, she called me to ask me if we would like to explore going into Wisconsin to pursue our master's degree. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so on that, I guess, journey, right, in exploring our master's degree, there was a lot of challenges that happened there. But once we settled into the field of mental health and going through that program, I came to just an understanding that, clearly, 90%, I would say like about 90% of our community is suffering, especially with the African American community, has mental health issues and mental health conditions that we're dealing with. And this is everything that I'm reading in my studies. And so me and her, were of course in that program, and that's where the birthing of the Peer Unity, came about, in which, we're gaining a very good understanding of mental health and the importance of it, especially within the African and African American communities, and wanting to be sort of a platform to educate people on the importance of it, but also bridging the gap between African and African Americans, because we feel like that's part of how we're going to heal as a people in terms of our mental health. Yeah.
It's an interesting thing that you have seen that the African American and the African need to come together through the avenue of healing. Take us deeper.
Yeah. So, when we just look at the history of, colonialism and, colonization, that's where, at least what I see is a lot of where the pain, that we've gone through, a lot of the dissonance in terms of our identity has come from. And so, we were, as Africans and African Americans, there's a lot of root identity issues in terms of who we see ourselves as, how we love ourselves, how we think about ourselves, and how we treat ourselves as well, and how we trust, each other. And so all that is, definitely rooted in sort of that era of colonialism and colonization. And so the fact of coming together and getting to the root issue, right? Coming to that understanding of this is what happened. This is why we've developed a lot of these different issues within our communities, both on the continent and in the diaspora. That's when we can begin to heal, because then we can begin to trust each other more, and we're able to work together a little bit better to actually build the community that we want, or the Africa that we want as well. And so that's where I see that bridge coming in.
Take us through maybe one or two steps. How do you see healing happening, or how have you seen healing be established in your community and through pure unity?
So one of the steps that we're taking with Pure Unity is we have a project in Nigeria called Angels Project, and so it's assisting Nigerian girls in education, leadership, and sisterhood. That's what the Angel stands for. And so we, take, enroll 12 girls. We're just finished our second cohort last year, so we'll probably be going into our third cohort in the fall. And so we, mentor these girls, and able to kind of just give them that mentorship, giving them an aspect of, because a lot of definitely Africans, or even you can say Nigerians, they think America's like, the place to be, you have to be here. And so we sort of bridge the gap and giving them information in terms of, loving yourself, of course, you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with wanting to come to America. There's nothing wrong with, wanting to expand, expand yourself, but kind of demystifying some of those thoughts that they have in terms of, America's the only place that you can thrive, or, moving out of your country is the only way you can thrive. So really giving them some tools to really ground themselves in purpose, understanding who they are and how they can contribute, no matter where they are, especially, within the continent. And then also outside of that project, also involved in different, organizations where we're, always promoting the bridging of the gap. And one of the goals that we have for Pure Unity is being able to essentially take students from the US and take them into the continent. Because one of the things I would say I have seen is that anytime, even for myself, so I was born here in the US, but for me, actually stepping onto the continent and, for the first time and seeing my heritage and seeing, everything, it truly transformed my mind. And I've also seen that with others who are in my life or around me who maybe were born here, or, African Americans who's also gone to the continent. And again, the mindset has completely transformed. And so that's one of the goals that we do have for Pure Unity, which is, I believe is coming closer. Hopefully by next year, we can maybe have a first cohort of students that can go to Africa, with that mission, because just the mere like literal travel, you know what I mean, and experience there already does some healing in the mind, in terms of identity and loving self. Yeah.
That's powerful. Being like for me, I'm based in Kenya, and being based on the continent, sometimes we may assume that people in other continents, the diaspora, are not really wanting to connect with the motherland, not wanting to connect with their fellow Africans. So when did you recognize that this is something that you want to pursue for the long term, and that you want to see everybody in the African diaspora and the continent to become one?
I would say, yeah, it was during that my master's program. I feel like that the program, I think I've already had this desire of thinking about human behavior and understanding, human behavior. But I feel like the program and reading the books and looking at all the things that constitute to mental health conditions, and realizing that a majority of those mental health conditions are, are connected to my people. You know what I mean? So there was sort of this burning, sort of desire, like, wow, what is really being done about it? Like, what are we really doing? How are we really contributing to this process of healing or therapy? And even when I think about the therapy that I learned in my graduate school, I knew that was not going to be, the type of therapy that is going to be, healing for our community. Because again, I know a lot of the research and things are done, not necessarily on, culturally on our people, or a grounding foundation of understanding of our people and our mentality and the way we think and the way we practice, which is different from the American culture. And so I think it was very important for me to, a growing desire for me to sort of be in that work in terms of helping people understand, because there's a stigma around mental health. And, it's really more associated with, more of the diagnostic, disorders in terms of like bipolar and schizophrenia and all these things. But if you look deeper into it, there's a very foundational part of it stems from like, your upbringing, trauma. A lot of trauma is a big part of it, and so when we think about the trauma, I remember writing a paper on generational trauma and seeing how, yeah, it's kind of gone from, when you look at the base of it, it's come from colonialism and everything that's happened through that process. And so it's like, I have to be a part of that work. And so seeing the connection between all the lies, like you just mentioned, you think that, people don't want to be connected, but there's so many lies that are being taught, you know what I mean, to disconnect you from your identity. Even for myself, if I think about it, I realize that the pictures and the depiction of, I think it was Feeding America, was actually the Igbo people, during the Biafra War that they were showing, but that depiction at the time when I was young was like, oh, I don't want to be a part of Africa. That's not my identity. You just want to disassociate yourself from anything Black, anything Africa, so, and that is, part of, a mental challenge that, we don't really look at in terms of our identity and how we do things, because at the root of it, we are, as a people, creators. Generally we're creators. And so if we're confused about our identity, if we're confused about, what happened, how do we work together to actually heal the community? Because it's really going to take us. Because when we think about therapy, that's like one of the foundational things is being connected, on a cultural level, elevates the level of healing versus, maybe being counseled or, having a therapeutic relationship with someone who doesn't understand. And so when you have that foundational aspect of just understanding on both sides, I do believe that we'll get into a place of, being able to heal and work together in a way that actually transforms, our communities. Yeah.
So imagine a world where we are healed and each party knows their identity. How does that look like to you?
It looks like it looks like a place where I'm a person who's a believer in the Creator, believer in you know understanding that God is love and love is God, right? And so when you think about that, um, there's a saying in the Bible that says, peace that passeth all understanding. And so when you have an understanding, of something, there is an aspect of creating peace. It's not that, everybody's going to be alike. It's not, it's not a world where everybody's alike. We're diverse, when we think about who we are as people. So, but if we have understanding of each and every one's sort of purpose and, you know, who God created them to be, then we're able to work together. So it's a world where, we're really highlighting people's gifts and talents and understanding their purpose in terms of how they're going to move or be activated within the community, where everybody has their place and purpose and working towards, living an effective life and within a community. And so that's how I see it, is really people identifying and understanding the diversity. So when you have that understanding, you have peace. There's no need for like, I'm better, the competition that is unnecessary. And so you just really work with people's diversity and their purpose to actually create a collective community in which you want to live. Yeah.
You've mentioned God is love. And then also one of his attributes is peace. And your name is Peace. So do you know why your parents named you Peace?
Well, I have 6 sisters. And so there's mercy, grace, love, joy, faith, patience, and I'm peace. And so, I always, for me, every time I say it, I'm like, it's pretty unique. My dad did name all of us, and it is based on the fruits of the spirit. Um, and yeah, my dad's just real spiritual guy. I haven't really asked him fully, I know it's based on the fruits of the spirit. Um, but that's as much as I know. If there was a boy in the family, I don't know what, the name would have been. But yeah.
That is an amazing story. And it's interesting, the power of words, that when we are intentional about what words we select and choose, it truly leaves an impact. So if your younger self was seated across you right now, what would you tell her?
My younger self, um, I would tell I would tell her to be fearless, um, you know, to know that everything is in the control of the creator. And so yeah, that fearlessness of really following um that intuition, really following that the spirit of, the Holy Spirit, to guide you and be fearless. Because, I think for me, as my younger self, yeah, I was kind of being afraid of challenges and being afraid of different things. But yeah, I would say just being fearless and following that intuition, following that knowing that was in, already on the inside.
I like it. Being fearless and just taking action. So we're going to enter a round of random questions. Don't overthink it. Share what's on your heart. And the first question is, how can you tell someone has a sense of humor?
How can you tell someone has a sense of humor? Just by the things that they say, you know, um, it's a little quirky, right? It's out of the box sometimes, and then it's funny, but it's like maybe even dry sometimes. But it's a quirky, way of just kind of delivering information.
If you were given $10 million today, what would you do with it?
$10 million today? I would definitely distribute a portion of it into some of the different organizations that I'm a part of in terms of international development. And yeah, that's what comes to the top of my, a portion of it would definitely be set aside towards development, international development. Yeah.
If you could have 10 hobbies or one passion, what would you choose?
10 hobbies or one passion? One passion, I would say, for sure. You know, keeps you focused, and those passions can fuel a lot of different hobbies. So, yes, one passion.
Nice. And if you could interview anyone in the world, alive or passed away, who would you interview?
Good question. Who would I interview, past or alive? I would like to interview, there's this lady named Catherine Kuhlman. She's going to pass. She's mostly known in the religious world, but she was a healer. And you know, and she was, yeah, she was a healer and like an evangelist in many ways. But she really talked, and she really talked about the Holy Spirit, you know, and the power of the Holy Spirit and how she led her life. And, you know, I see a lot of connections between, you know, her work in terms of the Holy Spirit. So I would love to, that would be somebody I would love to interview.
What's one thing, if someone was seated across you right now and they stumbled upon this term Holy Spirit, how would you describe him to them?
I would describe the Holy Spirit as, you know, the Christ within, right? The notion of what we understand as the Christ, and that Christ is someone who guides, counsels, gives you direction in all things concerning your life and purpose, reveals all things concerning your life to you so that you can move in purpose according to what God created you to be.
Fantastic. You've mentioned purpose a lot. Tell us a little bit what purpose is and why it's important for one to know their purpose.
Yes. So I've mentioned it several times because it's part of the work that I'm also involved with in terms of training around purpose, helping people develop and understand their purpose, like who God created them to be. And so when I think about purpose, it's really that, your purpose. Why were you created? Why were you put on this earth? Why did, you know, the creator, you know, there's many people have come and gone, many people who have not fulfilled on, you know, why they are here. But we know that everything in the universe was created for a purpose, including you as a human being. And so when we think about purpose, it's really discovering why you were created and actualizing on that purpose.
Now, is there anything else that's still on your heart or mind that you want to share with those who are tuned in?
Well, I would just say, again, in terms of, you know, this word of healing, right? I do believe that healing is a personal journey as well. I do believe that you have to seek, you know, seek that healing. And so, you know, I would encourage, you know, the audience to seek that healing, you know, seek understanding who God created you to be, understanding, you know, especially within the African American community, understanding, you know, the differences between, you know, I would say, you know, I'm Nigerian, so I always think of my African American as my brothers and sisters. You know, they're long lost. They're my brothers and sisters. They're family. So really seeking to understanding each other, not in the way that we've probably been socialized through social media, but again on a personal journey of seeking and understanding. Because when you do seek, you will find, and you know, that's where the healing comes.
There's something before we end this conversation that you've mentioned, that it's a personal journey. So how do you encourage someone who, because it's human nature that we're seeking validation from people around us, but then we're not getting it, so we choose not to heal. So how do you encourage someone to take that journey of saying, you know what, I'm taking this next step of healing, and whoever comes along with me, it doesn't matter, I'm on this journey of healing?
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you bring up, because yeah, we're constantly distracted by what people think, right? And how people think of us. And so in terms of first steps, is really getting to a place of asking questions, right? I think starting with just asking questions, not that you're going to get those questions answered right away, but once you start to ask those questions, the creator begins to move in direction to bring people in your life, that will begin to help you understand and heal, that will be supportive. And then, I think the part of letting go of getting validation from others is a process, it is a process. And you just have to be intentional in your mind of keep reminding yourself, and loving on yourself, so that, no matter what, the outside is saying, you have that notion of, love for yourself, and understanding that it is part of the process, and that it is a process as well. Yeah.
So, dear listeners, I hope you've picked one or two things from this conversation. For me, is healing is a personal journey, and you can start today. You don't need to wait for anyone to tell you that you can do so. You make that choice for yourself. I know it's a process. It won't be easy, but it's worth it. So until the next episode, thank you for tuning in.